Most people only think about investing in a taxable brokerage account after they've maxed out everything else. And while that's not necessarily wrong, it misses the bigger picture. Because taxable accounts aren't just a last resort, they're one of the most underrated tools that you have for building wealth. But like any tool, it only works if you know when and how to use it. So in this video, we're going to break down exactly when it makes sense to use a taxable account, how to maximize it to pay $0 in taxes, common mistakes to avoid, and why ignoring it could quietly limit your future options, even if you're doing everything else right. Before we get too deep into it, let's quickly break down what a taxable brokerage account actually is, because a lot of people either haven't heard of it or assume it's something complicated, but it's really not. A taxable brokerage account is just a regular investment account that you can open through any brokerage like Fidelity, Vanguard, Schwab, Robinhood, or M1 Finance. You can buy stocks, ETFs, index funds, and other investments inside of it. The key difference between this and retirement accounts like a 401k or Roth IRA is that it doesn't come with tax advantages up front or on the back end. You don't get a tax deduction for contributing, and you'll owe taxes on things like dividends and capital gains when you sell investments for a profit. It's one of the simplest investment accounts to get started with, and when used right, it can be way more powerful than people give it credit for. And that's the first thing that makes a taxable brokerage account so powerful: the flexibility. There's no age restrictions, no early withdrawal penalties, no required holding periods, and if you need the money, you can access it without asking for permission or getting hit with a penalty for using your own funds. That might sound basic, but in the world of retirement-focused investing, it's actually very rare. Most accounts come with strings attached, like contribution rules, income limits, or early withdrawal penalties that can eat up 10% or more of your money just for taking it out at the wrong time. Taxable accounts don't play by any of those traditional rules. You're not locked into a specific timeline, you're not boxed in by age-based milestones, you can invest at your own pace, withdraw on your own schedule, and respond to life as it happens, not just how the IRS thinks it should happen. And while that might not seem like a big deal when everything in life is going according to plan, that flexibility becomes extremely valuable when life inevitably throws a curveball your way, because we all know that life never moves in a straight line. For example, according to a 2024 Retirement Confidence Survey, nearly 70% of retirees said the timing of their retirement was out of their control. That stat alone is reason enough to at least consider putting some of your money in a place that doesn't penalize you for using it when life doesn't go according to plan. So even though taxable accounts don't come with the upfront tax benefits of a traditional 401k or the long-term tax-free growth of a Roth, what they do give you in return is freedom, which in some cases is just as valuable. That flexibility becomes even more important if you're planning to retire before 59 and a half, because that's the age when most retirement accounts finally start letting you use them. Before then, withdrawing from these accounts usually means getting hit with a 10% penalty on top of regular taxes. So if you're pursuing financial independence, make enough money, then leave your job before that age, and all of your money is tied up in retirement accounts, you've got a big problem. With a 401k, you may be able to access your money penalty-free at age 55, but only if you meet certain conditions. Even with a Roth IRA, you'll need to follow specific rules about contributions versus earnings to avoid taxes and fees. And while there are workarounds like Roth conversion ladders or SEP withdrawals, they take extra planning and time. Which brings us to one of the smartest uses for a taxable account: bridging the gap between early retirement age and traditional retirement age. Let's say you hit your number and want to leave your job at 50. That's great, but you've now got a 10-year window where most of your retirement money is technically off limits. If all your investments are tied up in tax advantage accounts, you're stuck. And that's the moment where flexibility goes from nice to have to absolutely necessary. A taxable brokerage account gives you a pool of money that you can tap into on your own terms during that transition without triggering penalties, without complex tax gymnastics, and without derailing your long-term plan. One of the most overlooked benefits of a taxable brokerage account is how tax efficient it can actually be and how it can save you thousands of dollars. Here's how it works. Long-term capital gains tax from investments held for over 1 year are taxed on a sliding scale. But if your taxable income falls below a certain threshold, your capital gains tax rate is actually 0%. For 2025, that threshold is $48,350 for single filers and $96,700 for married couples filing jointly. But that's taxable income, which means you still get to subtract this standard deduction, which is $15,000 and $30,000. $32,000. So realistically, you could have up to $63,350 in total income if you're single, and $126,700 in total income if you are married filing jointly, and still pay $0 in federal capital gains tax. Let's break down a real-life example to show you how this actually works. Say you're married, no other income, and you sell investments out of your taxable brokerage account for a $90,000 gain. Subtract the $30,000 standard deduction, and your taxable income is $60,000. You're well under the $96,700 limit, so that entire $90,000 gain is taxed at 0%. And just to be clear, when you sell investments for a $90,000 gain, that means the total amount you're selling is actually higher than that. For example, if you originally invested $50,000 and it grew to $140,000, the $90,000 gain is what gets reported and taxed, not the full $140,000. The original $50,000 you invested is called your cost basis, and you don't have to pay tax on that amount when you sell. Now, what if you still want to earn some income and take advantage of the 0% capital gains tax? In that case, let's say you earned $30,000 from a job that year. That ordinary income would fill up the lower part of your 0% capital gains bracket. Since the full threshold for married couples is $96,700 in taxable income, that leaves $66,700 of room for long-term capital gains to still be taxed at 0%. So you could sell investments and realize up to a $66,700 gain and still pay $0 in capital gains taxes. All of these examples apply to the single tax filers as well, adjusted for their income thresholds and standard deduction. Strategically paying 0% capital gains tax is one of the most powerful, lesser-known strategies for early retirees, people taking a work break, or anyone in a lower income year. You're not just accessing your money, you're doing it in a way that can legally dodge the IRS. But here's the nuance a lot of people miss. Just because you plan to retire early doesn't mean you will. Life happens, and sometimes the dream of early retirement gets thrown off track by reality. Kids, divorce, job loss, aging parents, or even just losing the desire to walk away at 50. That's why, especially in the beginning, it's smart to focus your savings on retirement accounts first, because worst case scenario, you end up retiring at 60 or later like everyone else. And if that happens, you'll be glad that the bulk of your money is in accounts designed to minimize your taxes throughout a potentially 20 to 30 plus year retirement, not sitting in a taxable account where every withdrawal could come with a big tax bill. So the smarter move is to front load your retirement savings into retirement specific accounts that give you the best long-term tax advantages. Then, once you're closer to your target retirement age and more confident in your timeline, you can start shifting some of your savings into a taxable brokerage account to help cover that gap between leaving work and turning 59 and a half. Once you've covered the basics, such as your 401k, 403b, your Roth or traditional IRA, maybe even your HSA, you'll eventually hit a point where you've got more money to invest but nowhere to officially put it. That's when a taxable brokerage account becomes your best next move if you have more money to invest. It doesn't have the same contribution limits or income restrictions. There's no waiting period or special rules. You're not getting upfront tax breaks, but what you're getting is the ability to keep investing to take advantage of compound interest without hitting a wall. And that's key, because stopping your investing momentum just because you've maxed out all of your other accounts is how people plateau their wealth building ability. I've worked with people who handle extra money in a bunch of different ways, and some choose to spend more, others choose to split it between spending and investing in a taxable brokerage account. For example, just last month I worked with a girl who got a $15,000 bonus and dropped the entire thing into her brokerage account since her retirement accounts will be maxed out for the year and she didn't have any lifestyle upgrades that she wanted to make. Think of it like this: your retirement accounts are the foundation, but your taxable account is what lets you build past the blueprint, whether that's for long-term wealth, added flexibility, or goals that don't fit into the neat retirement box. But remember, not everything you invest for has to be 30 years away like retirement. One of the most underrated ways to use a taxable brokerage account is for medium to long-term goals, the kinds of things that are maybe 4 to 10 years out. Big expenses like buying a car, a taco truck, making a down payment on a house, saving for larger home upgrades, or expenses like a new roof. These aren't short-term savings goals that belong in high-yield savings accounts, but they're not far off retirement goals either. They live in the middle ground, which is a little too far out to just let money sit there, but too soon to lock away in a retirement account. That's exactly how I've been using mine. Back in 2019, I started setting money aside every month in a brokerage account specifically for my next car. After getting out of almost 6 figures of debt, I'm not interested in financing anything and prefer to pay cash for things like vehicles. Once I had saved up enough and bought the car that I drive now with cash, I knew that I would need a replacement in about 6 or 7 years. So I just kept pretending like I had a car payment, but this time I invested it in a taxable brokerage account instead of letting it sit in savings. Parking that money in a regular savings account for that long felt like too much of a missed opportunity. And now a few years later, I've got a fully built up car investment fund just sitting there waiting for me to pull the trigger when it's time to buy my next used car. While it's grown by around $8,000 so far, this isn't about chasing massive returns. It's about giving your money some room to grow instead of letting it sit stagnant in cash or a savings account. All that being said, I need to act very responsible here and give a quick PSA. Investing money you plan to spend in the next few years does come with risk. The market could drop right when you need the money, which could throw your whole plan off. So you have to be okay with that possibility and ideally be flexible if you need to delay the purchase just a bit. That's why I would not recommend this approach for something with a hard deadline, like saving for a wedding ring or the wedding itself. The last thing that you want to have to do is explain to your bride how the S&P 500 just canceled her big day. That might be the end of both your investing plan and your relationship. But hey, on the bright side, you could end up like me, where you invest money to save up for a wedding ring, only to have her dump you right before you buy it. I suppose technically that investment had a better return than the relationship. I promise it's okay to laugh at my expense. In all seriousness, if you've got a goal that's still a few years away, but you're flexible on the timeline and comfortable with a little market risk, this is where a taxable account can quietly do a lot of heavy lifting. Sometimes you're ready to start investing, but the usual tools are just not available. Maybe your job doesn't offer a 401k or 403b, or you're self-employed and haven't set up a solo 401k or SEP IRA yet. Or maybe you're between jobs and just want to keep the investing momentum going. Whatever the case, an IRA should always be the main option. But since the contribution limits are lower, and once you hit them you're stuck, the next best place to invest is a taxable brokerage account. And yeah, you won't get the upfront tax deduction like you would with a traditional 401k or other employer-sponsored retirement account, but if you don't have access to those in the first place, then you don't really have a choice. I've seen this a lot with people who work in certain fields like the restaurant industry. They want to do the right thing financially, but they feel stuck because they don't have access to all of the classic retirement options. They end up doing nothing, but the truth is, the best account isn't always the one with the biggest tax break. It's the one that you can get money into as quickly as possible. A taxable brokerage account lets you do that. We've all seen it. Sometimes life gives you a very small window to do something interesting that wasn't on your bingo card 30 days ago. It could be a friend starting a business who invites you in as an early investor. It could be the perfect time to start your own thing, take an unexpected risk, or jump on something that doesn't come around twice. Or maybe you just want to take a mini retirement and live out of your van for 6 months because why not? These aren't things that are emergencies, and they're not exactly retirement goals either. That's where a taxable brokerage account comes in, or what I like to call a freedom or adventure fund. It gives you the flexibility to fund those what-if moments you can't always plan for but don't want to miss when they show up. Like if your boss pisses you off enough one day and you want to tell him how you really feel before you quit on the spot.
You're cool, and you, I'm out.
In these cases, you're not pulling from your emergency fund. You're not touching your 401k. You've just built up enough outside of those accounts in this adventure fund to kind of say, yeah, I actually think I could do that. I have seen people use this kind of fund to take a risk on themselves, to buy their time back, or to pivot hard in a new direction. That's what a taxable brokerage account can give you, the freedom to take a shot at something without blowing up everything else in the process. One potential problem you could run into when investing in a taxable account is a lost decade. That's where you end up losing money for 10 straight years. Luckily, I did all of the legwork and crunched the numbers to show you how likely this sort of thing is and how to avoid it, which you can learn about in this video to your left next. Hit that like button before you go and check out the personal finance bundle down in the description below to gain access to all of these spreadsheets that I personally use. I'll see you in the next one, friends. Done.